All right, so for our friends who are watching from home, we're about to do a lecture on Lesson 4, Methods of Defining. So as you're watching from home, make sure that you are taking notes. I will check those from you whenever you get back to school. So before we dive into methods of defining, just hopefully the last thing I'll have to tell you about like quizzes and tests. So you took a quiz last week, maybe you guys remember it, and it was quiz 1. And the material covered was as follows. It was introduction through Lesson 3 catechism questions in multiple choice format and introduction through Lesson 3 textbook material. You guys remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So next week, likely on Wednesday, you're going to take quiz 2. And that's also going to have 2 parts, but please notice it's only going to cover Lesson 4 through 5 catechism questions in multiple choice. There's only like 15 of them. And it'll cover lessons 4 through 5 textbook material. So, Wilder, on your quiz next week, will there be any catechism questions from lesson 1?
I didn't hear you.
Anybody want to help them out? No, there won't be. It's only lesson 4 through 5 material. On your quiz next week will only be lesson 4 through 5 material. But wait. Please do not eject everything you learned last week out of your brain, because 2 weeks from now, likely, we will take test 1. And test 1 will have the following format. 20, introduction through lesson 5 catechism questions in short answer format. So for your test, I'm going to take like your 60 catechism questions, and 20 of them will be on there. Now, I'm going to make sure they're not super long answers. They're going to be the shorter answers, but you're going to have to know these well enough. Now, let me just answer a question that's about to get asked. Do they have to be word for word? Yes and no. Okay? If the question says, what are the 2 branches of formal logic, and in our catechism it says induction and deduction, and you flip those, that's right. I'm not going to count off for that. If you leave off the word a or the, or if you make something singular that's supposed to be plural, like, you're fine. But if the answer is induction and deduction, you're like, it's the one where, you do the experiments, and the other one where, you do like the premises. Okay, that's wrong. Okay, it's induction and deduction. Okay, so study as if it's going to be word for word, and it'll make it much easier. So your test 1, 20 questions from our lesson, introduction through lesson 5 catechism, short answer, and textbook material, introduction through lesson 5. Okay. So that's how quiz and test will work. And after we do this once, one rotation through this, it's the same way every time. Quizzes will only have questions from the material on the quiz. Tests will cover whole units. Okay? So any questions about quiz or test format? Okay, great. Now let's talk about methods of defining. All right, so today, as you've already read, and today we're going to cover 3 methods of defining terms. Now, the best method for defining a term could depend on the term itself or the circumstances or who you're defining it for. So, for example, if I want to define the term block for my babies, I'm not going to define the geometric shape. I'm not going to define the chemical composition. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to point at it and I'm going to say block, right? So it's going to depend on the situation. And this is where the art part of logic comes in. So there is no tried and true, always right, no matter what, define this way. It's going to have to come through experience. Sometimes you should define by synonym, sometimes by example, but most often by genus and difference. So let's look first at defining by synonym. Somebody shout out, what is a feline? A cat. Congratulations, you all just defined by synonym. So this is yet another thing in logic that you already know how to do, you just didn't know you were doing it. You never knew that you were defining by synonym, but you have been all along. You just defined by synonym. Now, defining by synonym means exactly that. It's not a very complex definition. It means to define by giving a synonym of the term. Defining by synonym means to define by giving a synonym of the term. So, for example, what is a road? A street. Okay? So he defined by synonym. He gave me a synonym of the word road. Now, that's perfectly fine. That's a helpful thing to do. Do another one. What does the word beautiful mean? Pretty. Okay. So I don't know what a beautiful means, and so Anna has given me a helpful synonym. Pretty. Okay, I know what pretty means, so now I know what beautiful means. Now, this is a helpful way of defining, but this is not a perfect way of defining. Because first of all, it only works if I know what the synonym means. So for example, imagine that I'm learning English. I come across the word beautiful. So I go to my friend Anna and I say, Anna, what does beautiful mean? And she says, pretty. But I also don't know what pretty means. So I still don't know what beautiful means. So sometimes we can define using a synonym that the person also doesn't know and they still are confused. Also, another limitation of defining by synonym is some, and really probably all, some words don't have exact synonyms. So for example, there's no synonym for mango. You can't say, oh, papaya. No, papaya is a different fruit. It's not a mango. There's no synonym really for foot, right? So we don't have synonyms for every single word, and we don't have an exact synonym for any word. When we do this, though, if we're going to define by synonym, use a synonym that is more common and easily understood than the term being defined. So, for example, if Jackson asked me, Mr. Wood, what's a human? And I said, a Homo sapien. Okay, if Jackson doesn't know the meaning of the word human, what's the odds he knows the definition of the word Homo sapien? Yeah, very, very low. So typically, I'm going to use Anna as an example because this was great. I asked what the word beautiful means. She gave me a shorter, simpler word. Beautiful, pretty. Okay? So we want to kind of work downward. If we're defining by a synonym, we want to be working downward and getting simpler and simpler, okay, until someone knows what the word means, and then they can kind of understand everything else. All right, so next example, or next type of defining, would be defining by example. Imagine with me, if you will, that an alien walked into the room and asked, what is a textbook? How would you likely answer? Weber, show us. He would just hold up a textbook, right? This is a textbook. Do we need to clear out space so you can come up and put on a little play for us, or can we get back to business? Okay, so we would likely all know to just hold up a textbook and show an example. And that's what we call defining by example. And the way that most kids learn their first words is by example. Now, none of you remember being babies, but maybe some of you have. I know Sally, for example, has got lots of younger siblings, and she's probably seen her parents pick up an endless stream of objects and be like, doggy, block, dad, mama, right? You are defining things by example. You're pointing to things and showing them what they are. And that's a perfectly helpful way of defining. There is another way of defining. You can give species of that term. So if I said to Reed, what's a vehicle? And he said, oh, it's like a car, a train, a plane, a submarine, a boat, a tricycle. Okay. Gotcha. Now I know what a vehicle is. I got a pretty good idea. But when we do this, guys, we've got to be careful. Okay, so what if I asked Reed, what is a vehicle? And he said, it's like, a bicycle or a tricycle. Now, is he wrong? No. But according to Reed's definition that he's given me, what are some of the essential elements of vehicles? David? Well, some of the essential things, Sally, give me one. Yeah, they have wheels that I pedal, and where do they go? On the land, right? So if that is what, gentlemen, if that is what Reed has told me a vehicle is, a bicycle or a tricycle, and then I see a plane fly overhead, am I going to think that's a vehicle? No. I don't see any pedals, I don't see any wheels, and it's up in the air. So we've got to make sure that when we're defining by example, we're giving a broad range so that we're actually giving somebody something helpful. There's another error that we've got to avoid, and that's because defining by example can be very vague. If Bean asked me, hey, Mr. Wood, what's a computer? And I just did this, David doesn't know if I'm pointing to all of this or if I'm just pointing to this one button or just part of it. So defining by example can be very vague. We don't know exactly what the person means. So defining by synonym and example are good, but they're not always the most helpful. And so the method that we're going to use in this class almost always is defining by genus and difference. So what is the definition of the term backpack, Sally?
It's bad because of that.
Wow, that is so good. It's almost like you got that straight out of the textbook, Sally. I tell you what, that was very... Yeah, no, she came up with that on her own. No, I want you to get stuff out of the textbook. That's fine. Yes, a bag you carry on your back. And what we just did when we defined backpack that way is we defined by genus, a bag, and difference, you carry on your back. A bag you carry on your back. And this is usually the best way to define a term. So when you define by genus and difference, you first name the term's genus, the broader category it falls into. So for backpack, the genus of backpack would be bag. Right? So we're doing a genus and species chart, bag, and a type of bag would be a backpack. But what would be another type of bag? How about a shopping bag, like you get at Publix, where shopping is always a pleasure, right? So what's the difference? What's the essential difference? Both of these are bags. Both of these have objects you put in them. What's the essential difference between a backpack and a shopping bag? David Bean?
Backpack goes in your back.
Backpack goes in your back. Shopping bags go in your hands. Okay? I would say that's the essential difference between the two. I mean, can you put a loaf of bread and canned goods in a backpack?
Yes.
Can you carry books and pencils in a shopping bag?
Yeah.
Of course you can. The essential difference is not what goes in them, it's where they go. Backpack and a shopping bag are different because of where they go. So name the terms genus, and then add descriptions that set it apart from other species of the genus. So for example, glasses. Well, great definition of glasses would be lenses, and that's the genus, that you wear on your face, and that's the difference. So think about a telescope. A telescope has a lens. A telescope has to do with seeing things, just like glasses. But what's the big difference? Telescopes don't go on your face. Glasses go on your face. Author. A person. That's our genus. Cats aren't authors. Trees aren't authors. Right? Planets aren't authors. A person who writes books. What makes an author different than a firefighter? One of them fights fires. One of them writes books. And so that's a great genus and difference definition. So how do we do this? Well, when choosing a genus, ask yourself this question. What kind of thing is this thing? So if I look at a backpack, what is that? Well, it's a bag. So that's going to be my genus. When I look at glasses, what are glasses? Lenses. When I look at authors, what are authors? Humans. That's what type of thing this thing is. So that's your genus. Then ask yourself this question, what makes it different from other species of this genus? And that's the difference. Genus and difference definitions. A backpack is a bag that you wear on your back. An author is a person who writes books. Now, just like every other thing, there are mistakes that we want to avoid. So let's look at those as we wrap up. The difference needs to exclude everything the term excludes and include everything that the term includes. So if I said a backpack is a red bag that you wear on your back, what have I excluded?
Any other color bag.
Any other color backpack. My backpack is black. But if I define backpack as a red bag that you wear on your back, I've made my definition too narrow. If I define backpack as a bag that can carry school supplies, I've made my definition way too broad. So we want it to be narrow enough to have only what needs to be in there, but not so narrow that it's not helpful anymore. So for example, if I said, what's a house? And Wilder said, well, it's a building. We're good so far. Where people sleep, well, that difference is too broad because people sleep in hotels. Hotels are buildings. Hotels aren't houses. Another error we want to avoid is making a difference that's not essential. So it's ironic we're doing this on the day of the inauguration, but if I said, what's a president? And you said a man or a woman who lives in the White House, well, that's true, but it's not helpful. There are other people who live in the White House, and that's not what makes the president. As if David Sellers could break into the White House and sleep there one night, he becomes president. That's not how it works. The president is the elected head of a Republican state. So this elected head is the genus. A president is the elected head, that's our genus, of a Republican state. That's our difference. What makes him different than other rulers? He's the elected head of a Republican state. So remember, the difference doesn't always have to come after the genus. So if I asked many of you what a triangle is, you would probably say a three-sided figure. And if you did that, that would be great. That's a great definition. But you put the difference first and the genus second, and that's totally okay. You can absolutely do that. Put the genus first, or put the difference first, then the genus. It doesn't matter. As long as it fits grammatically, you do it however you want to do it. Just give me a good genus and a good difference. Okay? Any questions about genus and difference? Sally?
Couldn't the other one by defined by a species? Couldn't that be like given an example? Because does the example have to be like literally an object?
What do you mean?
Like you said, one of the ways for defining a genus is a term is like defined by example, and then another way is defined by species.
So if I'm hearing you right, Sally, think of it this way. I think I can head you off the pass here. If I made a genus and species chart, and the genus was methods of defining, we discussed three. We said defining by synonym, example, and genus and difference. Okay, with me so far? Underneath example, there are two species. There's demonstration and listing species. So the example thing was, if someone said, what is a textbook? And I pointed, that is defining by example through demonstration. Okay? And if I said, what is a vehicle? And I said, a train, a plane, a car, a bike, a boat, I'm defining by example through listing species. Okay? So both of these would be types of defining by example, and defining by example is a method of defining. Okay? Does that make sense? I don't know if anybody else had that question, but that kind of hopefully helped clarifies it. Any other questions about defining by genus and difference? Okay, I'm going to give you your homework, which you have 15 minutes left to do, and you might finish, but you get no bonus points for finishing early. So please, if you need to go home and take your time on this, please do. Now, I'm going to give this to you. Write your name on it and nothing else. We're going to do 3 of these together. So please don't do anything besides write your name on it. And then we're going to go over this together, and then I'll turn you loose and you can work on this for the rest of the time that we have. Yes, Jackson. Just leave them out. I'm going to come around and look at them. Yeah, I'll you back to the back.
Nice job. Huge job.
All right, has everybody got one? Gentlemen, passing things back is not a complicated operation, please. Ladies, Anna, can you help us out here? All right, so look at it. It says exercise 4, 1 through 3 all have these same instructions. It says, define the following terms by listing 3 examples of each. Number 1, nation. Can someone raise their hand and give me one example of a nation, Sam? America, okay? Couple of notes of clarification here, which I can't believe I have to say, but I do. 1, Africa and Asia and Europe aren't countries, they're continents, okay? So you're laughing, but I've had people put Africa as a country. It's not a country. Second point of clarification, real countries only. Wakanda or something off Game of Thrones does not count. Real countries. So you're going to list for number 1, 3 examples. We've given you 1, America. You're going to list 3 examples. Any questions about how to do numbers 1, 2, and 3? Okay, look at number 4. Numbers 4, 5, and 6 say define these terms by identifying a synonym of each. Can somebody raise their hand and give me a synonym of happy? David Sellers.
Joyful.
Joyful. Okay. So you're going to do the exact same thing for number 5 and number 6. You're going to give me a synonym of job and a synonym of dinner. Any question about how to do number 5 and number 6? All right, 7 through 12 say this. Define the following words by genus and difference. Can someone tell me the genus of brother? Sally. Sibling. Can someone raise their hand and tell me the difference between a brother and all other types of siblings? Weaver? Male, yes. So we would put for number 7, a male sibling. Genus, sibling, difference, male. And you're going to do that for 8 through 12. Any questions about how to do 8 through 12? Any questions at all about your homework? Hannah.
For nation, could I put Australia on that thing?
Is that a sovereign nation?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So as long as it's a nation, yes, Australia is the bonus one. That's both a country and a continent. But yeah, Africa and Asia, no. All right, anything else? All right, you have about 10 minutes, which is probably enough time to finish. Work by yourself. And henceforth, if you have a question, I'm going to say to you, beloved, figure it out. Okay? So you got the next 10 minutes to work.